Would you like to be queen for a day?
Host Jack Bailey uttered those iconic words, first on radio, then on television for nearly 2 decades. Now, actor Alan Thicke is getting ready to fill Bailey's shoes in a brand new stage production, Queen for a Day, the musical. It premieres September 26th at Ontario's Richmond Hill Centre for the Performing Arts. Alan Thicke joins us in studio. Great to be able to have you here. Congratulations on the new production.
I'm working on that.
Who wouldn't want to be queen for a day? You've got it down.
I'm working on that and the mustache. Yeah.
Did you watch it?
I didn't watch it. It was actually a little before my time. Yeah. The musical, world premiere musical, which makes it pretty exciting to be here in Toronto, takes place in 1953. And that was the beginning of television. It had been on radio, but the beginning of its run on television. And it was the first reality show, really.
It really was, right.
Well, especially in the makeover department. You know, you watch the extreme makeovers, whether it's weight loss or your new house or the makeover of your finances. That element of television today really owes its genesis to Queen for a Day, because they invented product placement back then, and they would take a woman out of the audience and make her queen for a day, make her dreams come true, whether it was simply a new washer dryer or a new prosthesis for the nephew. You know, they really did wonderful things.
And it was under the radar for a little bit, unless you were actually in that era watching at that time. Jack Bailey was a pioneer, the likes of which, I mean, we talk about Ed Sullivan, of course, later on, but he was a pioneer, and the way he could use the camera when there hadn't been anybody before him to teach him how.
Well, he started as a carnival barker, and he was in vaudeville, so he really had his training in all of those areas, and it was live television. They had 2,000 women a day would come down to the studio to get picked, pick me, you know. 2,000 a day for 5 days a week in Los Angeles, and that's how popular it was. And he would bring them on and get their stories out of them and have fun with them, but at the same time, some of the stories would, you know, were kind of tragic, and he managed to walk that fine line without being maudlin.
It was almost a time of more innocence, too, on the air. These women who, I mean, it was making dreams come true, the likes of which, as you mentioned, the reality shows do today. But to see the looks on their faces, you know, that hope, that dream that they could be a queen for a day and on TV.
I think the musical deals with some interesting sociological issues. Back in the early 50s, there were, for instance, they didn't have black women on the show. They weren't being selected as regularly as white women were. The very role of women in the household and society was not established the way.
Because these women weren't taking the day off work to come into the show. They were working by and large.
Exactly. So it deals with a couple of interesting issues that way. And again, the fact that we're able to present it in this musical, I was so impressed when I first heard it and read the script. Linda Barnett wrote the music and lyrics, and it is a fun family experience, this very energetic, uplifting Queen for a Day musical. But as I said, the undercurrent, there are other issues being dealt with that make you think a little bit, and it's interesting to watch.
Given your musical background and the composition that you've done in the past, when you take a look at the musical score for this, what do you like?
Well, you mean the difference between me writing the facts of life and this being an entire libretto?
But I just thinking for most people out there, I mean, anybody who can write anything, you know, if you're going to sit down and write a pop song, a show tune, but for theater, it's and that time you're putting a different era into 2012. And
it has to be consistent with the music and the tone of that era. Now, I don't write anything more than 3 minutes. I have very low attention span that way. So the challenge, the notion of putting together a couple of hours and having it have an arc and be the variety and the interest and the pacing that you need, a wonderful accomplishment that Linda has done here.
When you think about all of your experience in television, what, you know, very different feeling when you're on stage and playing off an audience. What do you get from that? What do you feel from that?
Well, exactly that. It is that live, instantaneous, better get it right, no margin of error, discipline. that theater has that no other genre has. If you're on stage as yourself and you're doing a little stand-up or whatever you're up to, singing a song, you have a little license, a little latitude. On stage in theater, especially in musical theater where there are music cues involved throughout, you better get it right or be on the bus. And that was my experience. I did play Broadway a few years ago. I played in Chicago, the musical, and I did Promises, Promises and Mame, and had such a wonderful respect for gypsies, the people who devote their lives to live theater, for the discipline of nightly exactitude, an amazing art form.
What do you think of Mr. Seaver now when you look back? Because we reran a couple of the clips earlier. You have to. I mean, it was so successful, and you were so tied to it, you know, for a long time. When you look back, and maybe you don't look at these things anymore, but when you see that character, what do you see in yourself as that actor?
I see great hair, and proud that I still have much of it, and wonderful memories. You know, we had, and I was proud of what that represented. It was really the end of an era of what they called family television, because when around the end of our run, the Nielsen company was discovering that households now had 2 televisions. They no longer had a program for the whole family. They had one for adults, one for kids. So it's true that they don't make shows like that anymore, like Us and Full House and Who's the Boss and Cosby, and that's why they keep rerunning our shows.
Yes, they do. Absolutely, they do. And in the meantime, for this production, we get you back in Canada for a while. Oh,
I'd love to be. This is my Ontario time of year. And I brought my 15-year-old up, and we went to Muskoka, and we were at the CNE this week. I got to shoot hoops, you know, in the Midway, and for only $8,000, I won a 39-cent stuffed pig.
So, everybody's laughing because we've all done it.
And the comedy festival that I did this weekend, saw how fabulous the Canadian young comedy industry is right now. It's been an exciting time.
And you know, I know you do a lot of charity work as well, and we were talking just before we came up on camera about the last time we had done an event together was for diabetes, and you threw yourself front and center in that to push awareness for that, which again took a lot of time but was amazing for people who watched.
Well, thank you. I have a diabetic son, and I have my foundation for the cure at the University of Western Ontario, which is where they discovered insulin many years ago, so we're very proud of that. What great Canadian discovery. I'm honorary chairman of Canadians Abroad, so I go around the States especially bragging about Canada. That's one thing I brag about. I brag about the invention of BlackBerry, or as Carly Jepsen calls it, Call Me Maybe.
Call Me Maybe.
Yeah.
Depends.
And there's a lot to be be a lot to talk about.
Well, we're very proud of you, and thank you so much for spending some time here this morning. I know we had to get you up early to come on, but we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.